lease agreement is over and if it is not renewed, then we cannot make use of the asset, as a result of which the normal operations of the business may be affected. So whenever we are collecting money in the form of public deposits, it does not create any charge on the assets of the company. We can say one of the most important merits of a commercial paper is it provides a continuous source of fund to the organization. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In continuation of my discussions on the Chapter 8, in this session 2, we will be having a look into the other sources of finance. Now, let us see what is the next source of finance. So, the next source of finance is lease financing. So, as we all know that what is leasing? Leasing is nothing but taking an asset on a rental basis. Now, let us look into what is the meaning of the word leasing finance. So, in lease financing, it is a contractual agreement whereby one party, that is the owner of an asset, grants the other party the right to use the asset in return for a periodical payment. So here we should understand that lease financing is nothing but you are taking an asset on lease. Suppose it is a very important plant and machinery. So the plant and machinery is necessary for running the organization and it is very heavily priced. Then in such a case, the organization can take it on a rental basis. So yearly they will have to pay the lease rent whatever has been demanded by the lessor, and we will be making use of the asset. Now, it is a contractual agreement where one party, that is the owner of the asset, grants the other party the right to use the asset. So, the other party, that is, so the one person that is the owner of the asset will be giving the asset for another person to make use of the asset for a periodic payment. So, yearly payment we'll have to pay. So, in other words, it is a renting of an asset for some specified period. So, it will be renting of an asset for a specified period. So, that is, it may be for a 3 years, for a period of 5 years or so on. So, in this way, we will be renting the asset. So, the owner of the asset is called the lessor, whereas the party that uses the asset is called as the lessee. The lessee pays a fixed periodic sum called as the lease rental to the lessor for the use of the asset. Just in the same case as we just rent out a building. So, as and when we just pay the rent, we can be staying in that, making use of that building. In the same way, this is an agreement between the owner of the asset, that is the plant and machinery or any asset for that matter. So, we will be taking the asset and we will be making a periodical payment to the owner for making use of the asset. So, this is what we mean by lease financing. Now, let us look into what are the merits of lease financing. So, the important merits of lease financing are it enables the lessee to acquire the asset with a lower investment. So, it enables the lessee to acquire the asset with a lower. So, we need not pay the huge amount of money and purchase the asset. So, we can just pay the rent and make use of the asset. Then, second important merit is simple documentation that makes it easier to finance the assets. So, it is one of the second merits. So, there is no serious documentation as such. So, you will have to just enter into a contract with the owner of the asset and then you can make use of the asset. Then, lease rentals paid by the lessee are deductible for computing taxable profits. So, whatever rent we are paying for the asset use, so that rent is deductible for taxable profits. Then the next merit of having this lease financing is it provides finance without diluting the ownership or control of business. So they are giving us the finance, so we need not issue shares or we need not issue debentures. So for the making use of the asset only, we will be just paying a rent. So in this way, it will not be a financial burden or we will not be diluting the ownership of the organization. Then next one is lease agreement does not affect the debt raising capacity of an enterprise. So you don't need to have a debt raising capacity if you are going in for a lease financing. Then the risk of obsolescence is borne by the lessor. So this allows greater flexibility to the lessee to replace the asset. Now, so the last merit of this lease financing is the risk of obsolescence is borne by the lessor. That is, we don't have any risk of the technology being outdated as such because we are not investing in the asset. So if that asset is not up to date, then we can always go in for a new lessor who will be renting the machinery of the new technology. Then next, let us go in for the limitations. So what are the limitations of lease financing? A lease arrangement may impose certain restrictions on the use of assets. For example, it may not allow the lessee to make any alteration or modification in the asset. So whenever we have material or any machinery which we are bringing it on lease, so we cannot make any moderation or alteration in the asset. Then next one is, so the normal business operations may be affected in case the lease is not renewed. So the normal business operations may be affected. Suppose the machinery's lease agreement is over, and if it is not renewed, then we cannot make use of the asset, as a result of which the normal operations of the business may be affected. Then the next limitation is, it may result in higher payout obligation in case the equipment is not found useful and the lessee opts for premature termination of the lease agreement. So suppose the equipment is not very useful and the lessee opts for premature termination of the lease agreement, then it will be a loss to the lessor. Then the last limitation is, the lessee never becomes the owner of the asset. It deprives him of the residual value of the asset. Now what does this mean? What do we mean by residual value? See, whenever we purchase a machinery, so once we make use of the machinery for a very long time, then we just have the residual value of the machinery. So whatever is the residual value or the scrap value, that can be sold. But here, since the lessee is not the owner of the machinery, he will not have any residual value of the machinery. So these are the limitations of lease financing. So the next important source of business finance is public deposits. So we all know the meaning of the word deposit. Deposit is nothing but paying the money into the bank. Suppose you have an SB account or an FD account or any kind of account in the bank, you will be going and depositing your money in the account. Suppose you have some extra money, you have some more money, so which you don't need for your daily use, then that money can be put in the fixed deposit of a bank. So in the same way, we can also invest in the public deposits of a company. So any joint stock company is authorized to collect deposits from the public as a source of finance. And this deposit, the interest which the companies will be giving on these public deposits, it will be more than the rate of interest given by the banks. Suppose the banks are giving you around 6 to 6.5% on the fixed deposits. These companies will be giving more rate of interest than the banks. So it is beneficiary for the public to just go in for public deposits, or it is one of the sources of finance for the joint stock companies. So let us see what the slide says. So public deposits. So the deposits that are raised by organizations directly from the public are known as public deposits. The rates of interest offered on public deposits are usually higher than that offered on bank deposits. So any person who is interested in depositing money in an organization can do so by filling up the prescribed form. So this is one of the easiest way of investing money in a company. So instead of investing in shares or instead of investing in debentures, the public can always invest in the public deposits of any organization, and it is a very simple process. You have to just fill in the form and just deposit the money in the organization. Now let us look into what are the merits of public public deposits. The merits of public deposits are: the procedure of obtaining deposits is simple and does not contain restrictive conditions as are generally there in a loan agreement. So this procedure of obtaining deposits is very, very simple. This is for the company because it does not contain any restrictive conditions as are generally present in case of a loan agreement. Suppose we have to take a loan from the bank, then there are a lot of procedures to be followed by the bank and also the organizations. But then in case of a joint stock company, if it has decided to collect money in the form of public deposits, then it is a very simple method. They can just fill the persons who are interested to invest, they can just fill in the form and deposit the money. Then the second merit is the cost of public deposits is generally lower than the cost of borrowings from banks and financial institutions. So for any organization, the cost of public deposits, so whatever the money they are paying as interest to the deposit holders, that is very small amount compared to the borrowings from banks and other financial institutions. Suppose that organization has to borrow from a bank or any other financial institution, it would have to pay more rate of interest, but then public deposits is one cheapest way of acquiring the finance. Then the next merit of public deposit is it does not usually create any charge on the assets of the company. The assets can be used as security for raising loans from other sources. So in the public deposits, whenever we are collecting money in the form of public deposits, it does not create any charge on the assets of the company. So the assets of the company are there. This public deposits will not have any charge on the assets as such, and the company is free to create a charge on the asset if it wants additional finance from any other sources. Then as the depositors do not have voting rights, the control of the company is not diluted. So as such, the public deposit holders, they are not the owners of them, they are not considered as the owners of the company, and as a result of which the company's ownership or control is not diluted. So these are the merits of public deposits. Now let us look into what are the limitations of this public deposits. So the major limitations are new companies generally find it difficult to raise funds through public deposits. So the new companies, whatever are there, they are finding it difficult to raise funds through public deposits. So this is one of the major limiting factor here. Then it is an unreliable source of finance as the public may not respond well when the company needs money. So this public deposits, so it's not very attractive for the public. So they may not find it very feasible to just invest in the public deposits because it is not easily convertible into cash. Suppose they are investing in shares or debentures, so it can be easily traded in the stock market, but then these public deposits are not so very flexible, and as such it is not very attractive, and when the company is actually in need of money, the public may not respond well. They may not invest in the form of public deposits, so which is one of the limitations to public deposits. Then the next limitation is the collection of public deposits may prove difficult, particularly when the size of the deposits required is large. So the collection of public deposits may prove difficult. So it may be very, very cumbersome for the company, because when the size of the deposits is sizably large, then it will be a Herculean task for the company. Then the next important source of finance is commercial paper. Now let us look into what is the meaning of the word commercial paper. So commercial paper is an unsecured money market instrument issued in the form of a promissory note. It was introduced in India in 1990 for enabling high-rated corporate borrowers to diversify their sources of short-term borrowings and to provide additional instruments to investors. Now let us have a look into the meaning of the word commercial paper. So it is an unsecured money market instrument. So it is one source of finance. It is a short-term source of finance for the company, and it is in the form of a promissory note. So we all know what is a promissory note. So they are all negotiable instruments. So this kind of it is a paper issued in the form of a promissory note, and it was introduced in India in 1990 for enabling highly rated corporate borrowers to diversify their sources of short-term borrowings and to provide an additional instrument to the investors. So this is one kind of a short-term borrowing for the company, and in another way you can say that it is giving an option for the investors also to invest in this commercial papers. So it is for a short-term period, that is anywhere between 6 months to 1 year. So if you need a financial arrangement, then this commercial paper is a very good example for a short-term finance. Then next, let us look into what are the merits of this commercial paper. A commercial paper is sold on an unsecured basis and does not contain any restrictive conditions. So as we all know, it is an unsecured form of an asset, and as such it does not contain any restrictive conditions. So this is one of the merits of this commercial paper. Then as it is freely transferable, it has high liquidity. So if you are investing in a commercial paper, then you can easily transfer it to anybody else because it is highly liquid in nature. The next merit is it provides more funds compared to other sources. Generally, the cost of commercial paper to the issuing firm is lower than the cost of the commercial bank loans. So it provides more funds compared to the other sources. So the cost of commercial paper to the issuing firm is lower than the cost of the commercial bank loans. So just like the company is issuing shares to the public, so it will be also issuing this commercial papers to the public. So as a result of which the public can buy the commercial paper, and in the long run the company will get the money which is needed for its activities. So the issuing firm is, the cost of issuing commercial paper is lower than the cost of the commercial bank loans. So commercial bank loans are more costlier than these commercial papers. So as such, it is most preferable for the companies when it is for a short-term financial arrangement. Then the next merit is the commercial paper provides continuous source of funds. This is because their maturity can be tailored to suit the requirements of the issuing firm. For maturing commercial papers can be repaid by selling new commercial papers. So we can say one of the most important merits of a commercial paper is it provides a continuous source of fund to the organization. Now, how it is providing continuous source? Because the company can always tailor make the maturity date of the commercial paper. Suppose it is issuing commercial paper in today's date, that is 11th April 2022, and it has written the maturity date as 11th April 2023. Now there is 1 year for the period of which the company can make use of this money. But then when it is nearing this 11th April 2023, the company can always replace it by again issuing another commercial paper saying that the maturity date for a next year. So in this way, it can ensure that there is a continuous source of funds to the organization. Then the next important merit is they can park the excess funds in commercial paper, thereby earning some good return on the same. So one of the merits of this commercial paper is the investors, whoever are there, they can park their money in the form of commercial papers and earn good returns on the same. Now let us go into what are the limitations of this commercial paper. Only financially sound and highly rated firms can raise money through commercial papers. So only financially sound and highly rated firms. So that is not all the companies who are there, they don't have the authority to issue commercial papers. So only the financially sound and highly rated firms can raise money through commercial papers. So it is the obligation of only the very good companies, very financially sound companies only are authorized to issue commercial papers. So new and moderately rated firms are not in a position to raise funds by this method. So if it is a new company and they want to just raise money through commercial papers, then it is not allowed by the registrar of companies. So only if a company is well established and it is running into profits, or what you call as the blue chip companies, they are entitled to collect money in the form of commercial papers. But new firms and moderately rated firms, they are not authorized by the registrar to collect money. The size of the money that can be raised through commercial paper is limited to the excess liquidity available with the suppliers of funds at a particular time. The size of the money that can be raised through commercial paper is limited to the excess liquidity available with suppliers of funds at a particular time. So we don't know actually what is the amount of money we will be collecting from these commercial papers, because we don't know when these people will be just wanting to invest in the commercial papers. Then the next limitation is commercial paper is an impersonal method of financing. As such, if a firm is not in a position to redeem its paper due to financial difficulties, extending the maturity of a commercial paper is not possible. So it is an impersonal method of raising the finance, and if the firm is not in a position to redeem its paper, so it would have told that the maturity date is 11th April 2023. But as on that date, if the company is not in a position to pay back the money, then it cannot extend the date further. So this is one of the limitations of commercial papers. Hope you have all understood this session on the sources of business finance. Thank you.